Greetings. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. We had some technical difficulties on the last one, and it is wonderful to see you. Today, I'm going to be reading Teenage Girls and Horror, a History, um, which is a paper that I wrote. When Warner Brothers acquired the film rights to Harry Potter, they weren't betting on a homeschool teen named Heather Lover who would establish a new precedent for copyright law. Diagnosed with a rare illness, she spent her time building web pages and at 14 created the Daily Prophet, a fictional, now inactive, online Hogwarts school newspaper. In response to Warner Brothers' bid to shut down fan websites, she helped start a boycott of Potter merchandise known as the Potter Wars. "We are not a big, scary corporation," Warner Brothers insisted, despite their legal efforts to prosecute children for fan websites. This occurred months before the release of the first movie in 2001. Today, Ms. Lover has chartered a philanthropic online organization online for disease awareness and research. Professor Henry Jenkins of the University of Southern California, who has been called an enthusiastic champion of fan power, claims that the Potter Wars may have, quote, may have been the first successful movement of fans to challenge the rather blanket copyright assertions of the major media producers, end quote. According to Andrea Hubert, Twilight is by far the more lucrative film franchise, although it cast the lead heroine as an insecure, submissive object, the direct opposite of Hermione Granger, who was patterned after J.K. Rowling herself. Uh, I would say that the cause for Twilight's money making ability might be linked to the Harry Potter films themselves. The teen fans of Twilight were themselves weaned on Harry Potter and have recently matured into the ideal consumer fans. Teenagers have long been noted for their voracious spending potential. As Hubert notes, what the Potter franchise lacks in sexuality, Twilight makes up for. Teens love horror and fantasy and can definitely relate to the brain chemistry of lust and obsession. Although many of the first horror film efforts were French or German, America has always had a special affinity for the genre. The first American film to be displayed in the United States to the public was by Thomas Edison in 1896. The film The Widow's Kiss shocked America and drew protests because it showed kissing. The same year, horror movies, or unsettling movies, began to be shown. The first horror movie made in 1896 was a 2-minute vampire film directed by French magician Georges Méliès, Les Manoirs du Diable. Edison Studios Bronx released the first film version of Frankenstein in 1910. It wouldn't be until the 1960s when horror films would expose the gore found in daily surroundings such as Psycho and Jaws. But why are horror films popular? According to the Association for Natural Psychology, it's because we put ourselves in dire danger and walk away feeling as if we've accomplished something brave and daring. Many people would also claim horror films are popular because they give people an excuse to cling to or be clung to by your date at the movies. Multiple times throughout history, horror as a genre has been scrutinized by concerned parents, particularly because it often incorporates occult imagery. The A&P also states, quote, occult themes can have an effect on children's minds and these things worry them. it can make it difficult for them to concentrate in school and affect a child's mental health, end quote. These concerns were also expressed in 1954 when the Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency convened, headed by a lawyer from Tennessee, who would eventually force the comic book industry to adopt a self-regulatory code similar to that established by the motion picture industry. The committee was formed largely in response to crime, horror, sci-fi, and fantasy comics that depicted sex and violence, some already successfully banned in Canada. Mary Shelley, English romantic novelist, biographer, and editor, and the writer of Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, of 1818, was 21 when the book was published. She started to write it when she was 18, and it took a year to be completed. Mary Shelley, as a young lady, educated herself amongst her father's intellectual circle. The critic Hazlitt, the essayist Lamb, the poet Coleridge, and Percy Bysshe Shelley. Her first poem was published by age 10. Due to a dislike of her new stepmother, she was sent to live in Dundee, Scotland. At the age of 16, she ran away to France and Switzerland with Shelley, where they married in 1816. By the time of the book's publishing, she had had 2 infants die and suffered a nervous breakdown, combined with recent developments in electricity and physiology in the world of science, and it is easy to see how issues of life and death consumed her. Charlaine Harris, who is the author of the True Blood series, is married and mother of 3 teenagers. A former weightlifter and karate student, she is an avid reader and cinemaphile. Harris resides in Arkansas and is heavily involved with the St. James Episcopal Church. She was 50 years old when her 3rd novel series, known as the Southern Vampire or Sookie Stackhouse series, suddenly became a New York Times bestseller, very different from Shelley's circumstance, and yet the Southern Gothic style from which Harris's novels take their setting is a progeny of the neoclassical revival occurring during Shelley's time. The genre of horror was explored by women writers, is a popular topic on the internet, which serves to unite the horror and fantasy enthusiasts. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you tuning into this, and give me your thoughts about the horror novel genre and the varied interests of the horror novel genre. Do you have a favorite book or movie or franchise and do you think that Harry Potter has somewhat influenced the rising tide of horror movies and horror as a genre today, or not, or more fantasy and magic? Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate you liking and sharing and subscribing to these videos. It means so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.